Yellowstone fans, get ready, because the next chapter in the Dutton family story could take us to one of the most important years we have ever explored, 1969. For years we have watched the Dutton family fight to protect their land, their legacy, and their name. We have seen John Dutton III become the hard, complicated rancher at the center of Yellowstone. We watched the origins of the family in 1883, and in 1923, we saw Spencer Dutton survive war, loss, and unimaginable tragedy to help secure the future of the Yellowstone Ranch. But now, a new rumored chapter could connect almost everything. A story set in 1969 could show us Spencer Dutton's final years, John Dutton II at the height of his power, a young John Dutton III growing up under the weight of the Dutton name, and possibly even the beginning of the relationships that shaped Yellowstone forever. Today we are breaking down the biggest clues from the 1923 finale, the Dutton family members who could appear, the possible inheritance war that could divide the ranch, potential casting choices, and when fans might finally get to watch this massive new Yellowstone spin-off. And trust me, if this series happens, it may become the most emotional and explosive Dutton story yet. Before we begin, remember, some details are confirmed through the Yellowstone universe, while others are fan theories and casting speculation. But when you put all the clues together, the possibilities are incredible. To understand why 1969 could be such a huge chapter, we need to go back to the ending of 1923. The finale gave fans several major answers about Spencer Dutton's future. After the tragic death of Alexandra, Spencer returned to the Yellowstone Ranch with his newborn son. With Jacob Dutton stepping away from the day-to-day responsibility of the ranch, Spencer became the man who would carry the Dutton legacy forward. That alone is important. Spencer was not just another member of the family. He was the survivor. He was the one who had traveled across the world, survived war, hunted dangerous animals, faced enemies on land and sea, and still made it home to Montana. But the finale also revealed something that changes everything. After Alexandra's death, Spencer never remarried. However, he later lived with a widowed woman and had another child with her. That means Spencer's family line may have become much more complicated than fans originally believed. And then came the biggest clue of all. Spencer Dutton died in 1969. That date is not random. If a new Yellowstone story is set in 1969, then Spencer's final years could be at the heart of it. We could see an older Spencer facing mortality, family conflict, and the question that has haunted every Dutton generation: who deserves the ranch? At the same time, John Dutton II would be an adult, likely the man running much of the Yellowstone operation. But if Spencer had another son, then John Dutton II may not have been the only heir with a claim to the family legacy. And that is where things could become dangerous. There is another major clue from 1923 that fans should not ignore: Elizabeth and Jack Dutton. Jack Dutton's death was one of the most painful moments in the series. He represented the next generation of the ranch, and his death left Elizabeth devastated. But when Elizabeth left for Boston, she was pregnant. That means Jack may have had a son who grew up far away from Montana, far away from the Yellowstone Ranch, and far away from the Dutton family. Now imagine what happens if that son returns decades later. He may have grown up hearing stories about his father, Jack Dutton. He may know that his father was born on the Yellowstone Ranch. He may know that his family helped build the land, protect it, and bleed for it. So if he comes back in 1969, he may not come back just to visit. He may come back to claim what he believes belongs to him. This could create a three-way battle for the future of the ranch. On one side, John Dutton II, the established heir, the man who has spent his life on the land. On another side, Spencer's younger son, the half-brother who may feel he has been pushed aside. And then there is Jack's son, the outsider with a legitimate Dutton bloodline and a powerful emotional claim. This would not simply be a family disagreement. It could become a full-scale inheritance war. And if Yellowstone has taught us anything, it is that the Dutton family does not handle inheritance peacefully. One of the most interesting possibilities in a 1969 series is the relationship between John Dutton II and his possible half-brother. John Dutton II would likely be in his mid-40s by this point. He would be old enough to understand the cost of running the Yellowstone Ranch. He would have spent years learning from Spencer, Kara, Jacob, and the generations before him. He would not see the ranch as property. He would see it as responsibility. But Spencer's other son could see things very differently. Maybe he grew up outside the ranch. Maybe he always felt like the second family. Maybe he knew that John Dutton II was treated as the natural heir because he was Alexandra's son, the child connected to Spencer's great love story. That resentment could grow for years. And when Spencer begins to decline in his final years, that resentment could finally explode. Imagine the tension. John Dutton II believes he has earned the right to lead. His half-brother believes blood gives him an equal claim. Jack's son arrives and reminds both of them that the ranch was built by more than one Dutton branch. Suddenly the Yellowstone is no longer united. It is surrounded by enemies from the outside and divided from within. This could give the series a family conflict similar in intensity to Beth and Jamie's war in Yellowstone, but with a very different tone. Beth and Jamie's conflict was personal, brutal, and shaped by betrayal. A 1969 conflict could be more about legacy, masculinity, land, and the pressure of being born into a family that treats the ranch like a sacred inheritance. Now, this may be the part fans are most excited about. A 1969 setting would allow us to meet a young John Dutton III. The John Dutton we knew in Yellowstone was a man of few words, tough, proud, loyal to the land, willing to make impossible decisions to protect his family. But how did he become that man? A 13-year-old John Dutton III could be one of the emotional centers of this series. He may grow up watching his father struggle to hold the ranch together. He may see adults fight over land, money, bloodlines, and family history. He may learn early that the Dutton name is both a privilege and a burden. Maybe he is already fascinated by ranch life. Maybe he sneaks out to work with the cowboys. Maybe he wants to ride, rope, and prove that he belongs among men much older than him. And since rodeo culture was growing rapidly during that era, perhaps young John could become interested in local competitions. He might secretly enter an event, not because he wants fame, but because he wants his father's respect. That would be a powerful story, a young boy trying to earn approval from a father who is too busy fighting for the survival of the ranch. And through that story we could finally understand why John Dutton III became so emotionally guarded later in life. Maybe he was not born cold. Maybe he learned to be cold because that was the only way to survive inside the Dutton family. Another exciting possibility is Evelyn Dutton. Yellowstone gave us only brief glimpses of Evelyn through flashbacks. We know she was deeply important to John Dutton III, and her death left a permanent mark on the family, but fans have always wanted more. What if 1969 shows us John and Evelyn as teenagers? What if they grew up near each other, knew each other for years, and slowly became inseparable? That would add a beautiful emotional layer to the series. Instead of meeting Evelyn only through tragedy, we could see her before everything changed. We could see her intelligence, her strength, and the reason John fell in love with her. Maybe she is one of the few people who sees through John's tough exterior. Maybe she understands that beneath the Dutton pride he is still a lonely kid trying to find his place in a family full of larger-than-life figures. Their relationship could give the series heart, especially if the rest of the story is filled with conflict, death, inheritance battles, and ranch politics. And knowing what eventually happens to Evelyn would make every quiet moment between them even more emotional. A Yellowstone story set in 1969 would not only be about the Dutton family, it would be about a country changing around them. America in 1969 was very different from the world of 1923. The country was dealing with cultural change, political tension, generational conflict, and the aftermath of major national events. Young people were questioning tradition. Cities were expanding. The old American West was changing. And for the Duttons, change has always been the enemy. The ranch may face pressure from developers, corporations, banks, government interests, and wealthy outsiders who see Montana land as an investment instead of a way of life. This would be the perfect era to show the Yellowstone Ranch becoming more isolated from the modern world. John Dutton II may believe the old ways are the only way. Young John Dutton III may be caught between tradition and the future. And Spencer, near the end of his life, may realize that protecting the ranch will become even harder after he is gone. That could make 1969 feel less like a simple prequel and more like the bridge between the old Dutton world and the Yellowstone we eventually came to know. Now, let's talk about casting. First, Spencer Dutton. Fans would love to see Brandon Sklenar return as Spencer. He made the character unforgettable in 1923, and he has already expressed interest in playing Spencer again, even with aging makeup. If the production uses strong makeup, careful lighting, and the right physical performance, seeing Brandon return as an older Spencer could be incredible. But there is also the possibility that the role could go to an older actor. Someone with the same intensity, toughness, and haunted energy that Spencer carried throughout 1923. For John Dutton II, fans have suggested Austin Butler as a possible choice. Austin has the screen presence, the intensity, and the ability to play characters who are both vulnerable and dangerous. He could bring a younger version of the Dutton toughness while still showing the pressure of being Spencer's son. For young John Dutton III, the series would need a truly gifted young actor. This role cannot simply be about looking like Kevin Costner. The actor would need to show intelligence, restraint, sadness, and the beginning of the strength that eventually defines John Dutton. For Jack Dutton's son, Ty Sheridan is an interesting fan casting choice. He has the right kind of quiet intensity and could play a character who arrives at the ranch with both anger and longing. Michelle Randolph could potentially return as Elizabeth through aging makeup. Her return would be emotional because Elizabeth would carry the memory of Jack and the pain of being separated from the Yellowstone for decades. John Bernthal is another name fans would love to see in the Yellowstone universe again. If he played Spencer's other son, he could bring a dangerous edge to the inheritance conflict. And of course, if the series explores Native American storylines, fans may hope to see Tiana Rainwater's legacy continue in some form, perhaps through older versions of familiar characters or younger members of the Rainwater family line. So when could we actually watch Yellowstone 1969? At this point, there is no official release date, no confirmed cast list, and no confirmed production schedule. That is important to remember. But based on the growing Yellowstone universe and the clear story clues connected to Spencer's death in 1969, the project has enormous potential. If the series is officially announced soon, a late 2027 or 2028 release could make sense. A limited series format would also fit perfectly, similar to the earlier Yellowstone prequels. A focused miniseries could tell one intense, emotional story: Spencer's final year, the battle over the ranch, young John Dutton III discovering who he is, and the beginning of the legacy that leads directly into Yellowstone. And if done right, it could become one of the most important chapters in the entire franchise. So what do you think? Would you want Yellowstone 1969 to focus mainly on Spencer Dutton's final years? Would you rather see an all-out inheritance war between John Dutton II, Spencer's other son, and Jack Dutton's son? Or are you most excited to see a young John Dutton III and possibly the beginning of his relationship with Evelyn? One thing is certain: 1969 could finally show us how the Yellowstone Ranch became the place John Dutton III was willing to sacrifice everything for. Drop your theories in the comments below. And if you want more Yellowstone updates, Dutton family theories, and breakdowns of every new spin-off rumor, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Yellowstone story.